Benjamin Gates has spent a lifetime hunting treasures that have been lost to history.
Take a look at this.
But when a secret from the past is uncovered...
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you one of the missing pages from the diary of John Wilkes Booth.
history will be rewritten.
Your great-great-granddaddy planned the assassination.
It can't be. Now...
I need to see the page.
You have 30 seconds to disable the alarm.
Go. You did that in 15 seconds.
That's why I tell people to get a dog.
His search to clear his family's name...
Take a look at this.
...has uncovered a secret he never expected to find.
There is a book, and it has the information you need. The President's Book of Secrets. A collection of documents for President's eyes only. The truth behind the JFK conspiracy. The missing minutes from the Watergate tapes. And, of course, Area 51. The only way you'll ever see that book is if you get elected president.
I'm going to kidnap the President of the United States.
Wouldn't it have just been easier for us to make an appointment?
Code 1! Code 1!
Gates. Don't kid yourself what we're capable of.
Every clue leads one step closer.
Your letter sent by the Queen.
You're in danger.
You've got to find wherever that leads before they do.
To unlocking the mystery. The world isn't ready to believe.
Ben, wait. That could be a horrible trap.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
National Treasure, Book of Secrets.
Hello and welcome to The Complete Works, an in-depth look into the career and filmography of Nicolas Cage. My name is Mike Smith. Joining me on this journey into the depths of true Cagedom is my friend, co-host, and fellow Cageaholic,
Mike DeCriscio.
How you doing today, Mike?
I am doing well. It's been, I think, at least 10 years since we've recorded a Complete Works episode.
It's been a minute. It's been a minute, man. Yeah, we've been saying we were going to do this episode for about 2 months now, I think, at this point. The holidays got in the way, and then there was a whole bunch of crazy stuff in the happenings, and I think we did like 3 FilmBook casts in a row or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's not like we weren't podcasting, we just weren't doing Complete Works. We took a break, but I think from now on we can be back to our regular schedule, which means 1 episode every 6 weeks. And theoretically 1 episode every 2 weeks, but hopefully we can stick to that. But this is a pretty big episode of Complete Works, Mike. This is actually a landmark episode because this is episode number 50.
Wow. I can't believe it.
Yeah, you know what that means, Mike?
What's that?
That means since we started this podcast 2.5 years ago, we have now watched 50 movies starring Nicolas Cage.
Oh, man, that's worthy of a resume spot, right?
Right? That's
got to be something.
Oh, well, I see you've seen over 50 films starring Nicolas Cage. You must be qualified to run this machine.
You're hired.
Yeah. Now, is that an insane thing for a person to do for a podcast that barely anybody listens to, Mike?
Some would say yes.
Some would say yes, but we do it anyway because what else are we going to do? Live our lives? Like, this is what we do. But it's an exciting movie that gets us to episode 50, Mike, because this is the very first sequel that Nicolas Cage ever did. And it's a sequel to one of his biggest hits. Today, we are talking about 2007's National Treasure, Book of Secrets. Now, this is, of course, the sequel to 2004's National Treasure, which we discussed in episode 42 of this podcast. If you want to go back and refresh your memory, if you want to just stop this, go back, listen to that episode, and then come right back in here. You will have recapped the original National Treasure for yourself. And you're welcome. You will feel good about the state of the world and things around you. And that movie was a pretty big hit for Disney, right? So that one, there was no plans to make a sequel to National Treasure. It was just a movie they made, put it out into the wild. But its box office returns were enough to give this one the green light in 2005. The movie had a budget. That movie had a budget of about $100 million and made about $347. This one had a budget of $130 and made about $457. So there was there's a pretty big margin of these movies were improving in box office performance from one movie to the next. And almost everyone behind the scenes from the first one returned to make this new National Treasure. John Turteltaub returned to direct the movie. Trevor Rabin did the score. The screenplay was written by Cormac and Marianne Wibberley. And of course, Jerry Bruckheimer produced the film, making this his 5th collaboration with Nicolas Cage. And 2007 was pretty much the last year in which Bruckheimer was a dominating force in Hollywood. That's the year he released National Treasure 2 and Pirates of the Caribbean 3. And his career since has pretty much slowed down, and it's mostly filled with big-budget flops, like The Prince of Persia and The Lone Ranger. So, outside of the ongoing Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, Jerry Bruckheimer hasn't really had much going in terms of box office success over the last decade or so, which is unfortunate. He had a long run of really big stuff.
I was just going to say, he had a pretty good run.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, speaking of Pirates of the Caribbean, Mike, Bruckheimer also brought on for this movie Terry Rocio and Ted Elliott to help craft the film's story. They were the co-writers of the original 4 Pirates of the Caribbean movies, the first 4 of those.
Okay.
And then they helped punch up the script for this one. And they also helped co-write Shrek. Just throwing that up there, I think.
Look, you can't say Shrek and expect me to get excited about everything, but I'm pretty excited now.
Yeah, exactly. Also, this movie was sort of co-written by Gregory Poirier, who also wrote for such films like The Spy Next Door with Jackie Chan and The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride.
Who could forget it?
Hey, you know what? Lion King 2? It's a dope movie, man. It's dope.
I don't know if I've ever seen it, but
really?
I'll take your word for it.
That was one of those ones that, when I was a kid, you would see all the Disney movies, and then there would be the direct-to-video Disney movies that would also come out, and most of them were garbage, but there were 3 good ones, by my estimation. There was The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, there was The Lion King 1.5, and there was Aladdin and the King of Thieves. Those are the only 3 good Disney direct-to-DVD, direct-to-video sequels, and I stand by that to this day. I haven't seen most of them at this point, but I'm pretty confident in that.
You've seen enough.
I've seen enough, yeah. Now, most of the cast of the original movie returns as well, including, of course, Nicolas Cage as Benjamin Franklin Gates. Justin Bartha and Diane Kruger return as Riley and Dr. Abigail Chase. And John Voight is back as Cage's father, Patrick Gates. Harvey Keitel also returns as FBI agent Sadusky. Now, the only major player from the original who does not return is that film's villain played by Sean Bean.
Right.
And instead, we get one of the best Nick Cage reunions of all time by having our villain, Mitch Wilkinson, be played by Ed Harris, the villain from The Rock.
Yeah, it happened.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I think that casting is definitely intentional, because this is a movie where Nicolas Cage gets access to government secrets, which include the Kennedy assassination. AKA, It picks up right where The Rock left off.
It's a secret Rock sequel.
Exactly, which is weird, because I was actually listening to our review of National Treasure earlier today, and you even mentioned that you like to believe that National Treasure is a stealth Rock sequel. Like he gets the government secrets and then goes off and becomes Benjamin Franklin Gates. And now this one kind of is that, which is kind of cool.
Not saying I called it, but
you called it.
Kind of called it 10 years later.
Plus, as an added bonus, the guy who Ed Harris steals a car from in London is also the guy who gets his car stolen by Sean Connery in The Rock.
Oh my god. That's got to be a thing. That's on purpose.
It's totally a thing, yeah.
That's also a Jerry Bruckheimer movie, right?
Yeah, Jerry Bruckheimer produced The Rock. Yeah, the point is, these filmmakers really like The Rock, and I can't blame them because The Rock is fucking dope.
Correct.
Anyway, beyond that, Helen Mirren joins the cast of this movie as well as Nicolas Cage's mom, Dr. Emily Appleton Gates. Armando Riesco returns in the first film as FBI agent Hendricks, and he also appeared in World Trade Center, so there's a Cage reunion there as well. And Alicia Coppola plays FBI agent Spellman. Now, that's no relation to the Coppolas that Nicolas Cage belongs to. I should throw that out there.
Yeah, that's important.
The completely unrelated Coppola. Albert Hall from films like Apocalypse Now and Malcolm X plays Dr. Nichols. And in one of my favorite bits of casting, Bruce Greenwood also plays the President of the United States in this movie. And if you'll remember, Bruce Greenwood played the President of the United States in a sequel that also involved members of a secret organization called the Golden Circle just last year.
That's right, yeah.
It's super weird, right?
It's amazing.
He was the president in Kingsman 2, The Golden Circle. And he's actually also played JFK in a movie, too. I think he played him in 13 Days. So Bruce Greenwood is just like the president guy, I guess, at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's just a weird coincidence, I guess, that he was president in 2 big-budget sequels that both involved an organization called the Golden Circle.
Shit's weird.
Shit's weird, man. Shit's bizarre. And actually, Kingsman's now owned by Disney as well, man. The franchise crossover is happening. It's happening, man. And finally, Ty Burrell from Modern Family plays the hapless love interest for Abigail named Connor. And country music singer Randy Travis makes a cameo appearance at the president's birthday party. Yeah, so National Treasure Book of Secrets, written by the Wibberleys, directed by John Turteltaub, 3 years after directing the original and 3 years before taking on his next project, which we'll get to talk about one day, Mike, because that is The Sorcerer's Apprentice with Nicolas Cage.
That's got to be soon, right? That's coming up.
That's in 2010. I believe that's like 5 or 6 years.
That's 18 episodes from now.
I think it's like 5 or 6 episodes from now.
Okay.
More realistically, because I think he's only in. I was looking ahead. There's only one movie that he's in 2008, and then there's 4 movies that he's in 2009, and then I think there's 2 in 2010. So we're like six or so episodes away from The Sorcerer's Apprentice. Anyway, National Treasure Book of Secrets was released on December 21st, 2007, celebrating its 10th anniversary just a couple of weeks ago. When we were originally trying to record this episode, I was hoping to have it ready for that 10-year anniversary. And
that would have been so cool.
That would have been nice. Did not happen. That's unfortunate. But we got it out now anyway, so just a little bit late. So happy 10-year birthday, National Treasure 2. If you went to the theater to see National Treasure 2 that weekend, you may have also seen Charlie Wilson's War, the Mike Nichols film written by Aaron Sorkin and starring Tom Hanks. You may have seen P.S. I Love You, a drama starring Hilary Swank and Gerard Butler. You may have seen Tim Burton's take on Sweeney Todd, the demon barber of Fleet Street, that came out that day. Or you may have seen the incredible parody film Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. But more likely you saw that on cable a couple years later because nobody saw that movie in the theater. And the IMDb plot synopsis for National Treasure 2 reads, Benjamin Gates must follow a clue left in John Wilkes Booth's diary to prove his ancestors' innocence in the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. Spooky stuff, Mike. So what are your overall thoughts on National Treasure Book of Secrets?
So overall, I had a lot of fun with National Treasure Book of Secrets. I thought that it overstayed its welcome for me a bit. I don't remember exactly how long National Treasure 1 was.
I think it's about 2 hours.
It's about 2 hours. It's around the same. I probably had the same complaint about the first one then. This one's just over 2 hours also, I think.
I think it's 2:10.
But it's still fun. It's the same kind of thing. Cage and crew happily following clues and gratuitous car chases, I guess, stuff like that, which also, nice shout out to The Rock. Good job, everybody that made this movie. But it's the watered down, safe adventure conspiracy movie, right? Like, it is a Disney movie, and I'm down. Sure, why not? It's a fun time. It's the same thing as the first one.
Yeah, I agree with you that it is the same thing as the first one. Pretty much, it's almost like a lot of the story beats are exactly the same. It even has a very similar ending. And much like the first one, I was worried how this one would hold up. Because when we saw the first one, I hadn't seen it in several years, like at least 10 years since I had seen the first one before we watched it again for the podcast. And I was thinking to myself, I don't know how this is supposed to hold up, because neither movie got great reviews when they first came out. But they were just big hits financially.
Yeah,
and I ended up really enjoying the first one a lot when we watched it a few months back for the podcast. And I got to say, I really enjoyed this one too. I had a blast with National Treasure Book of Secrets. This is another one where I haven't seen this in 10 years or so. Like I probably saw it. I saw it in theaters, and I think I saw it on DVD once, like when it first came out on DVD. So it was probably like mid 2008 that I saw this movie. So it was literally about 10 years ago since I saw National Treasure 2. And I think it holds up pretty well. Like I think it still kind of rocks. Now, like the original movie, though it was a big hit, it didn't do well critically. It currently holds a 35% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I think it was co-nominated for a couple of Razzie Awards. I think we talked about that before, where Ghost Rider, Next, and National Treasure 2 were all thrown together at the Razzies in 2007. It was, however, nominated for Best Movie at the 2008 MTV Movie Awards. So it lost to Transformers. So for whatever that's worth.
That says a lot.
And I do think this one kind of starts off kind of clunky, right? I think it starts off very kind of haphazard by doing what it can to bring its characters back to the dynamic they had in the first one. So it splits up Nicolas Cage and Diane Kruger. Justin Bartha loses all of his money, etc. But once you get past that first 15-minute mark or so, I think this thing just moves, and it moves really fast, and I think it's just really fun. While it's doing it, it delivers pretty much more of what you liked from the original. It's got the elaborate puzzles, it's got American history, funny banter, and much like the original, it's not something I'll be thinking about a whole lot, but it's a ton of fun while it lasts. And I think it's the kind of movie that really makes you go, why is there no National Treasure 3?
I was just having a discussion with one of my friends about this, and it turns out that, at least the last time we had the update for it, whoever updated the Wikipedia last said that there's a script written for it, and it's just shelved. Disney is worried about the box office, and it's just sitting on a shelf somewhere. Yeah. Which, now that they got that Marvel Star Wars money, they could just make movies, right? They can just nobody cares.
Now that they own half of Hollywood, they can just make whatever.
Come on.
And it's especially weird because this movie keeps teasing page 47, right? It keeps teasing what's on page 47 as if there could be a follow-up movie about that. And then there never was. And, these movies did well at the box office. This one did better than the first one. So, just a third one makes sense to me. And for some reason, the elements never came together. Probably because I think the fallout, like Jerry Bruckheimer's movie started to wane. Nicolas Cage's star started to fade. There's just a couple of elements that all happened at once. But I think if they greenlit a National Treasure 3 with Nicolas Cage in the lead role, it would make bank at the box office now. There was so much nostalgia for the National Treasure franchise. I could feel it. Yeah. You remember how Jurassic World made way more money than anyone ever thought it possibly could? I think I'm not saying it'll be as big as Jurassic World, but I think it could be very similar to that, where it's like, oh, people's nostalgia for Jurassic Park was way more than we thought.
Make 19 more of these movies.
Exactly, yeah. And it is something they've talked about since 2008. Even as recently as September 2017, Jerry Bruckheimer has said, that the script was finished, but Disney's not satisfied with the story. But yeah, I think if they made one, it could make bank, and it could be a huge comeback vehicle for Cage. And Cage is on the verge of a comeback right now, as is. We haven't really talked about it on the podcast that much. I've said in the past, I think Cage is on the verge of a comeback, but now he really kind of is. There's a new movie he just came out with called Mom and Dad, which just hit VOD from one of the directors of Crank, and it's supposed to be pretty good. But then he has a new movie coming out later in the year called Mandy, which has been touring a lot of different festivals and stuff, and I'm hearing is probably really good. That's from director Panos Cosmatos, who did Beyond the Black Rainbow, which is exciting. So to see him and Nicolas Cage teamed up, I think Nicolas Cage is getting a couple of really small critical acclaim roles now, and then will be blowing up soon. Yeah. If not as big as he once was, I think he will be back in Hollywood movies at some point, and I think that's kind of exciting, right?
Yeah, the Cage Assance is on the horizon.
Exactly. Now, Mike, let's talk. Now we're talking about Nicolas Cage. What did you think of Nicolas Cage in National Treasure: Book of Secrets?
This is a very middle of the road performance from him.
So?
I mean, it's not bad, and I guess when I say middle of the road, I think not cagey. I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay.
In what you might assume is like we talk about often, the meme version of Nicolas Cage, right? This is I've talked about it before. I think I talked about it in National Treasure 1. Is kind of like the benchmark for me. It's kind of like the beginning of the end. And National Treasure doesn't quite. National Treasure 2, sorry. It is also one of those kind of edge cases, border of the beginning for me, the beginning of the end kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just in my kind of collective memory of Nicolas Cage. But he's not, I don't think he's doing a bad job. There's one scene in particular that is the Cage freak out type thing, and I'm sure we'll talk about it soon. Yep. But that said, he's still, he's got all the quips and the banter, the chemistry between the Diane Kruger and that other guy that's always the sidekick.
Justin Bartlett.
Yeah, that guy, the guy that gets left on the roof in Hangover.
Yep.
Yeah, the three of them are really fun. Having John Voight and Helen Mirren join in, and having Ed Harris, them all working together and stuff is a lot of fun. But yeah, I felt like nothing particularly kind of grabbed me about him as Gates in this one.
Okay, that's interesting because I kind of had the opposite reaction. I liked him in the first one, but I feel like he more embodied the role. I guess in this one, it's weird. I feel like I have pretty much the same thoughts I had on the original movie. It's basically the same movie. With the exception that I feel like he gets more of his own mannerisms within the role in this one. There are he has a couple of weird line readings throughout, which I enjoy. But more than that, I feel like he just he embodies that leading man role pretty good. He's witty as a character. He's funny. He has that chemistry with Kruger and Bartha, and he dives into the action scenes with aplomb. And I really just enjoy watching him as Benjamin Franklin Gates, figuring out these different puzzles and stuff like that, like he's in an Uncharted game or something. It's really cool. It's a fun time.
That's fair.
Like you mentioned before, I think there is one scene that actually calls on Cage to overact. And it's one of my favorite Cage freakouts that I had completely forgotten about. I was watching them and be like, oh my god, I forgot this scene existed, but I'm so glad it does. And we'll talk about that when we talk about the moments or scenes that stand out to you. But it's a wild time. It's actually, I think it's one of his best freakouts of all time. So very, very happy with that. But how do you think this role fits into the roles that we've seen Cage play in other movies, Mike?
I'm not entirely sure that it's kind of like I've said it a bunch of times on the show. There's, it's the natural progression of what we see from him as a leading man. And it felt
that's
sort of
your catchphrase for the show.
Yeah. It felt sort of, it's the tagline, natural progression of podcasts. No, He, like I said, it's sort of like middle of the roady kind of thing for me. I felt so nothing particularly jumped out as a comparison to make, right off the bat. I don't know. What about you? What links did you see?
Well, obviously, we talked about The Rock a lot.
True.
And that's definitely like just by nature of having Nicolas Cage and Ed Harris facing off against each other in a Jerry Bruckheimer action film involving access to government files. Like, yeah, it's The Rock, but for kids. And and I dig that about it. I dig that about National Treasure too. But also, I mean, you were saying that about the first one, but I think this is really kind of the last role in which Cage is the big star of a major blockbuster movie. This is like the end of an era for Nicolas Cage. Because there would be attempts at this kind of success with movies like The Sorcerer's Apprentice, Kick-Ass, Ghost Rider 2, but none of them would really take off. And National Treasure 2 is, by all metrics, like the end of an era for Nicolas Cage, I think. Like this is kind of like the last big Nicolas Cage movie. And he would be in movies that were in theaters for a few years after this, before he went into a video on demand hell. But this feels like the final stand for Nicolas Cage, big action movie star.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting? I wonder if this happened to you. I mean, I guess it has because you didn't really remember the Cage freakout. Not that I did either. But when we were talking about National Treasure 1, I think we both talked about there's like one image or scene that we remembered, even though we hadn't seen it for 10 years. Like for me, it was him using the water bottle as a magnifying glass,
right?
Kind of thing.
Yeah, I actually have that too. There was one scene that I vividly remembered. You had one too?
No. For me, I was going to say that it's sad or interesting that National Treasure 2 does not have that for me. This was a movie that, I definitely saw it and stuff, and I sort of remembered what it was, but I didn't. There was not one image that I will probably always remember for no good reason.
Okay.
What was yours?
Okay, yeah. So I actually had two moments that I distinctly remembered from when I was a kid, and even though I haven't seen the movie in 10 years and didn't really remember much of it. For the first one was the scene where Cage sticks his hand in The Rock and starts screaming.
Okay.
I am sorry. I couldn't resist.
All
right, fair.
That might be because that was in the trailer, and I remember being in the trailer.
All right.
But that was definitely one of them. But then also the scene in which Cage explains to Riley the origin of the phrase "his name is Mud." For whatever reason, that was always in my head. And it's weird because I think my scene from the first one is the scene where Riley explains how the origins of daylight savings time. So I think I just really enjoyed as a kid watching these characters explain history things that I didn't know. And that's what I latched onto with these movies, and that's what I remembered when watching them this time around. Anyway, other scenes in the movie, though. I mean, so we'll talk about the scenes that stood out to you. We should talk about this big Cage freakout scene because we've mentioned it a couple of times. So there's a big scene when they're in London. Cage is trying to break into. Are they in the Queen's house right at that point?
They're in Buckingham Palace, I believe.
They're in the Buckingham House. I'm calling it the Queen's house, like it's a house.
Yeah, sure.
But they're in Buckingham Palace. They're like taking a tour, and Cage is like trying to get through, and Diane Kruger shows up, and she's not supposed to be there, and they get into an argument that turns into a fake argument, which turns into a real argument, and then Cage starts doing his like overactory thing. He's like stomping down the stairs, and he's jumping around, and then he like slides down a banister, and he starts making fun of the British guard and uses like a British accent, and it's just so much fun. It's so good.
Yeah,
you're the one who's making a scene right now.
I'm not making a scene right now.
No, we want to make a scene.
Well, then fine! If that's what you want, then let's have it out right now!
So subtle.
Well, let me guess. It's the wrong time! It's the wrong place! I'm wrong again! Wrong about us! Wrong about Thomas Gates! Wrong that you'd like the Queen Anne chair!
You're wrong to assume I'd like the chair.
You see, everybody listen to this. This is more interesting than that. She thinks that even when I'm right, I'm wrong. Isn't that right, Abigail? Just because I answer a question quickly doesn't make it wrong.
Not if the right answer is something we need to figure out together. As a couple, that's what couples do.
Sure.
Then...
You and your missus take it outside. Oh, now look what you've done. You brought the little bobbies down on us. You take the missus outside. I'm staying right here.
Ben! Whee!
Good afternoon, sir.
Hello.
Been drinking, have we?
Just a nip. Just pop down to the pub for a pint. Bit of all right. Going to arrest the man for that. Going to detain a blighter for enjoying his whiskey.
It's all right, that's enough, sir.
Bangers and mash. Sir? Bubbles and squeak. Smoked eel pie.
Sir?
Haggis!
That's it. Dismount the banister.
I've got a lovely bunch of coconuts. Here they are, standing in a row. Small ones, big ones, some as big as your head.
That was brilliant.
Yeah, it's pretty great. He does Ministry of Silly Walks for a second in there. I mean, not exactly, but yeah, pretty much.
That is a fantastic scene. What are the scenes in the movie stood out to you, Mike? Is there anything that you wanted to bring up?
I think another set piece, I guess, that I did remember, but it didn't have the one specific image or whatever action that I remember or that stuck out with me. But I did remember the Mount Vernon, right? Is that where they are when he kidnaps the president, or is it?
Yeah. That's Mount Vernon.
When he goes to the president's birthday party and he's like, hoodwinks him into going into the secret tunnel, and all that stuff. That's fun because that is like, that's the similar thing of Cage explaining the history of the phrase his name is Mud, because they kind of get into the backstory of Mount Vernon and weird history stuff about George Washington.
Right.
And it's, integral to the story. So that's cool.
That's kind of nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and this movie also does have its own answer to I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence.
Oh, yeah.
When it's about halfway through the movie and they're all arguing, and then everything goes silent and Cage decides, I'm going to kidnap the President of the United States.
Yeah.
And it's great. I'm a big fan of, that's like the big line from this movie, like I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence was from the first one.
Yeah.
And I really hope, I kind of wish there was more National Treasure movies just so there could be different variations on that line.
Oh my God.
For every movie. I'm going to steal the pyramids of Egypt or something.
There you go. Yeah. I would wonder if they now, if they made a National Treasure 3 now, what could that possibly be?
Well, I think it would have to do with page 47. And
right.
Riley mentioned that Area 51 is in there, so I think it has to do with aliens. I'm banking aliens for National Treasure 3.
I'm going to kidnap the sun.
That actually sounds like it could be a Nicolas Cage
movie. I'm in.
I think that was the plot of Sunshine, wasn't it? But I think Aliens is the next logical step for National Treasure 3. As we've learned from the Indiana Jones franchise, eventually these archaeological history series have to incorporate aliens.
It's always aliens.
Yeah, and the Uncharted games always have a supernatural event to them. So I think aliens are totally fine. It's totally within the realm of possibility. I really just want Nicolas Cage to fight aliens using U.S. history. That's all I really want out of life. Other scenes in the movie, I did really enjoy the car chase scene in London. I think there's a really fun moment with the exploding beer kegs where they're flying off the truck and trying to hitting people. It's entertaining, but also the Mount Rushmore stuff at the end. Yeah, it's cool. I enjoyed the Mount Rushmore stuff. It is basically exactly the same as the ending of the first one, where it's just there's a secret tunnel underneath this historical landmark, and that's going to lead into this gigantic secret city that no one's ever seen. But there's a lot of treasure inside. Yeah, but that does have the teetering scale set piece in Mount Rushmore. That's the thing that stood out to me too. Yeah,
and also interestingly, I thought this was an interesting, or I wasn't expecting this ending exactly where. Typically these kind of adventure things, the person finds the city of gold and, it sinks into the ocean and no one ever gets to know about their discovery or anything like that. But this, they just straight up, they discover the city of gold and at the end, they're national heroes in the newspapers and there's archaeologists there, learning stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Which seemed like an unexpected thing the way where I was going, especially because it's flooding or whatever at the end. I thought that was a weird subversion of the typical adventure story where it falls into the volcano and no one will ever see it again, or some crazy shit.
I mean, they kind of established that's what happened at the end of the first one too, right? Riley's written a book about it, and people know who he is, and people know who
that's true.
Gates is. So I think that is kind of interesting. You're right. That a lot of the times with Indiana Jones or whatever, you have to drop the cup and all that stuff.
Or it gets put in the warehouse when no one will see it, kind of thing.
Yeah. So in this one, they actually they get the stuff and they make off with it, and I mean, it seems like they sell it back to the government or something. I think is what
I guess
that has to be how they're making their money or something. But it's sort of I think in the Uncharted games they get the gold in the first one at least. I feel like they you're on a boat and there's a big tank of gold or something. That they have with them. But they don't take the whole city or whatever. Or they don't find a city in Uncharted. Now we're just talking about Uncharted. It's fine.
So tell me about Uncharted, Mike. There's a new game out, by the way. I haven't played it yet. I'm sure it's great.
Oh, yeah, man. I keep forgetting that that's out. The Lost Legacy, right? With Chloe and Nadine. I want to pick that up. But anyway, yeah. Okay, let's go. That's a little off topic. Anyway, I did actually want to talk about Diane Kruger's accent a little bit, because in the first movie, I made a note in our podcast about how like cool it was that Diane Kruger got to use her German accent in that movie. Like it was, she had a German accent, it was thick, and you could like it kind of added to that character. It's basically gone in this movie. Like she's not really.
Well, it shows up, but
it kind of comes in and out. But like she's mostly. Yeah. It's like it looks like it sounds like she's trying for an American accent in this movie. Yeah. Which I don't really get. Like why? Like it just kind of disappears in between movies, and like why is that? You know.
I don't know. Yeah, I definitely noticed that her accent waffled a bunch. I don't remember if she had one or if that happened in the first one either. Also, like I couldn't remember if it was in and out kind of thing. Yeah. Another scene though that I do love, it's the opening scene. Well, not the opening. The opening's like the flashback scene, but that was pretty cool too, I guess. But the scene where it's Jon Voight and Nicolas Cage like at the college or whatever, giving the presentation about the history of the missing pages or whatever from the Booth Diary, and like Ed Harris he comes out of the projector shadow in the back row, and I love how just over dramatic and like he stands up and like makes this proclamation about what their great grandfather was, and like it's just so ridiculous, and I loved it. I loved every second of that scene.
Thank you, Dr. Nichols. I only wish my grandfather had been here to see this wonderful.
Excuse me. I have a question I'd like to ask. What do you think ever happened to that Booth Diary page that was pulled out of the fire?
We may never know.
Perhaps. Perhaps not. You see, I have one of those great-great-granddaddies just like you. Way up in my family tree, named Silas Wilkinson. He used to tell a story about the night Lincoln was shot. As Silas tells it, Booth didn't seek out Thomas Gates regarding the treasure map that night. It was Thomas who called the meeting. A meeting to plan the assassination of Lincoln.
How absurd. That's a lie.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you one of the missing pages from the infamous diary of John Wilkes Booth with the name Thomas Gates written on a list along with all the other killers.
Yeah, I agree. How do you feel about Ed Harris's arc in this movie, Mike? Because he kind of does a 180 towards the end.
Yeah, he gets redeemed. Gates realize, or they realize they're just after the same thing, right? They just want to like clear. Does he want to clear his family name too? I can't remember.
No, Ed Harris just wants to make a mark on the world, kind of thing. He wants
He just wants to be in history. Yeah. I mean, it was a little kind of just sure we'll make you this guy good now.
That's kind of how I felt. Yeah.
Yeah,
like it's fine in the moment. I think it kind of works when you're watching it, but it just feels very fast. Considering all this, like Ed Harris has been chasing them this entire movie. He's held them at gunpoint. He's chased them through the streets of London and all that, and it just feels like,
them. And
and it just feels like okay, and now we're like now he's sacrificing himself for the group. That's fine. Like why not? Right?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. I think it's more a way to serve, Gates as a character to show like what a compassionate person he is. That he makes sure that his Ed Harris's character,
Wilkinson. You're right,
Wilkinson. Yeah. That he's like his name is included in the discovery and stuff. I think his redemption, quote unquote, is more just to make Gates look like a better person in terms of story. Like I
can see that. But how do you feel actually about the overall story of this movie? Because the original, it's just like a search for the treasure, right? It's not. There's no like personal connection to the treasure. Like there sort of is because like it's been passed through, like the map's been passed through history and stuff like that, like the clues and everything. But there's no like need for Cage to get the treasure in the first one, other than he wants to get the treasure, right? That's basically it. And in this movie, like the quest to get the treasure is directly related to Cage wanting to clear his family name because. There's new evidence that suggests that Cage's ancestor was involved in the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. Now, do you feel that is too far-fetched for this movie? Or
no, I think it actually like it is directly related to the first one, right? Because isn't part of the plot that no one believes, like their family has been claimed to have been the protector of the secret,
right,
kind of thing, and no one ever believed them, and like Cage wants the treasure to sort of prove that what they were saying was right? Like I feel like
no, you're right about that, but it's not. I feel like the stakes in that one are much different than in this one because in that one his ancestor literally killed Abraham Lincoln. And in the previous one, like people just think his ancestor was lying about a treasure. Like it's
right. It's just weird. Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know. I feel like it's an interesting way that, Cage in the first one, in a way, is pursuing the same thing. I mean, like in clearing their family name sort of thing, right? He proves that their family isn't crazy and that they were right about this stuff. And he has the reputation is there, right? He's given the presentation at the college or whatever about his family. And this guy comes and sullies it again. And now he's got to prove it right. So it makes sense as like a weird, continuation of that theme. But yeah, no, like he just was looking for like Ben Franklin's glasses or whatever in the first one. Like he's not involved in the assassination of Lincoln.
Yeah. Other stuff. I mean, I wanted to just briefly mention. There's the one scene they go to the Easter egg hunt at the White House to try to get inside, and there's a whole sequence in there. But right when they get there, there's this kid who comes up to Nicolas Cage and starts arguing with him about Abraham Lincoln.
Hey, I know you. Your great-great-grandfather killed President Lincoln.
No, that would be John Wilkes Booth.
Eisenhower says that Booth was just a tool in a greater conspiracy that involved men in Lincoln's own cabinet.
Absurd. Eisenschimmel's book is filled with spotty research and false assumptions.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
How do you explain why Lincoln's bodyguard left his post that night?
Because President Lincoln was never accompanied by guards when attending the theater. Are you listening? Especially on Good Friday.
How do you explain why all the bridges out of Washington were closed? Except one. The one Booth needed to escape.
Okay, run along now, you impossible child. Run along. What is going on with the education in America?
Starting to get angry in the argument, which I think is pretty funny, and he just dismisses the kid like, "Run along, you impossible child."
Yeah,
I just thought that was a funny line. That
I liked it. It also tickled my Jurassic Park nostalgia, right? The scene where Dr. Grant gets the kid to go in the other Jeep by accident and he locks him in the Jeep. Yeah, same thing. Classic.
Yeah, definitely. But that whole scene I think is pretty funny. Like they sneak into the White House with Ty Burrell and they have this whole like kind of farcical moment where Diane Kruger's looking for an earring. I do think Diane Kruger in this character is less of a strong character than she was in the first one. Whereas in the first, like she's still there for the entire movie, and she's there helping like solve all these puzzles and stuff. But I feel like she doesn't really solve as much in this movie as she does in the first one. Like in the first one, she's like equal with Cage.
Yeah, in the first one, they need her, right, for something. I can't remember exactly what.
Yeah, I think
yeah,
so.
And this one, they only need her because she has access to like that scanner thing in the beginning, and that's it. That's like kind of all she contributes.
And she's kind of used as like most of her character in this movie is kind of just like used as like this sort of like love triangle thing between Cage and Ty Burrell, which kind of culminates in that scene in the White House, which I thought was a funny scene. I thought Diane Kruger played it well, which is like looking around for the earring and like trying to act all sexual while she's doing it, so Ty Burrell gets distracted. Ty Burrell also has a very good like deadpan. Like bit where she's like, do you think it's down here? And she like looks down on the cushion and like her butt goes in the air, and Ty Burrell's just like, yes, and but
yeah, he's doing his Ty Burrell thing.
Yeah. He was funny, and it was a funny scene, but it just feels like I feel like Diane Kruger brought so much more to the first one, and I think she brings a lot to this one, but I think her character could just be utilized better in this movie.
I agree.
Also, I wanted to bring this up because this made me laugh kind of hard. There's a scene towards the beginning of the movie where they're deciphering clues, and it has to do with the Statue of Liberty, right? It's like the architect of the Statue of Liberty, and they discover that it's not the American Statue of Liberty; it's the French Statue of Liberty that like most people don't know exists, right? That's the one they have to go to. And then when they say that, like it cuts over to Paris, and you see the Eiffel Tower, and then it's just a fast zoom.
Yeah,
down to this tiny Statue of Liberty, and it made me laugh very hard because it's saying like, "Oh, Americans, you didn't know about this, did you?" Twist.
Yeah. I also love. It's one of the most interesting things in just movies in general to me that came out in this kind of like what is that? The aughts, right? The late aughts or whatever they call that decade, like 2007, 2000 to 2010, 11. Where it's like right on the cusp of current technology, so like everyone's got the Razor, and it's like that's the phone everyone's got, and he's flying a drone in that scene, right? It's a helicopter with a camera, and it's like this massive like like the remote control thing for it's got like a plug-on TV, and it's like the funniest thing ever to see all that kind of like weird technology that's almost where we are now, but just is so close.
And it was technology that was in vogue for like a year and a half before it moved on to the next thing, like
it's like when you watch The Wire and everyone's got beepers, and it's like that's how everyone communicates. The best.
Yeah. Also, I want to talk about Jon Voight and Helen Mirren a little bit because I thought this movie rushed through their romance even quicker than the first one did with Cage and Kruger.
Yeah.
And, like, they're pretty good. Like, I you add Helen Mirren to the movie, like, that's a plus in my book. But it's like, it just feels, they kind of are antagonistic towards each other at first, and then they're just, they're in the Mount Rushmore, like, crazy city. Jon Voight has, like, a Tarzan moment, which I enjoyed.
Yeah.
And then they kiss towards the end, and it's like, oh, all right. I guess you guys are back together.
And everyone makes up.
Yeah, that's fine. And then the Cage Kruger romance also. It's like, yeah, I mean, there's no point in breaking those characters up. I feel like, other than to have Ty Burrell sneak them into the White House, I feel like there's no point in Cage and Kruger having been broken up.
No, not at all. And I do appreciate though that Jon Voight and Helen Mirren, like how antagonistic they are towards each other, because their banter is like, it's two great actors, right. Like being mad at being like petty and bickering about stupid shit, like, and it's fun. Those scenes are fun.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Also wanted to mention this movie has a very optimistic view of the presidency, which is kind of nice to see right now. It's kind of Cage has like this big speech about how like the integrity of the presidency when he's talking to Bruce Greenwood, and it's like, oh, this is nice. This is nice.
That's nice.
Yeah, and it reminded me of the scene in the first one actually, where he's talking about the Declaration. He's like reading it like in this like hushed voice, and it's like, people don't talk this way anymore. Like that's kind of it's kind of the exact same scene, but where he's just like talking to Bruce Greenwood and like convincing him that he's worth trusting, kind of thing.
It's just a good old Disney movie,
It's a good old Disney movie, man. It's a good old Disney movie that there really should be a sequel to. I do not get.
I can't believe they didn't make it.
It's unfathomable to me. And like I get it, like Jerry Bruckheimer's star was waning, but if that's the case, then why not do National Treasure 3? Like bring it back up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I really hope they do soon-ish. That'd be insane.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. They got Cage back. They got Dan Kruger and Justin Bartha back. Like. Oh man! I mean, and I don't think Justin Bartha's doing much. I think you can get him back, but like,
yeah, he's probably available.
Yeah, and Diane Kruger is a very talented actress who does do a lot of things, but hasn't really done anything big in a couple of years. So I'd like to see her in National Treasure 3 as well. I just would really enjoy seeing the continuing adventures of these people. It's just a fun movie franchise that there's a lot of, I think, I'm not going to say demand for, but I think if there was a movie that was made, people would go see it. You know what I mean? I think it is like there's a Jumanji 2 in theaters right now.
And it's like crushing it.
That made a boatload of money. It made more than Justice League. Justice League didn't do as well as it should have, but like it should do better than a Jumanji 2. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, it's got The Rock, but yeah.
Oh yeah, it's got The Rock. Yeah. Still,
all right. Have The Rock be the son of
Nicolas Cage,
of Cage and Diane Kruger. And I'm in.
The son who's the same age or slightly younger than they are.
Yes, correct.
He might be older than Diane Kruger.
Don't ruin this for me.
How about The Rock plays Nicolas Cage's handsome uncle?
Done. I'm in. That Jon Voight forgot to mention. He's Jon Voight's brother. That would be amazing. I would pay $100 to see The Rock play Jon Voight's brother in a National Treasure 3. That is exactly what I want. And I can't. That one's
have
for
that
free,
now.
Disney.
All right, I think that about wraps up our thoughts on National Treasure 2, Mike. Unless you have any last bits you want to talk about.
No, I think that's kind of it. I am. We've mentioned it before, though. This phenomenon of us being very tentative and scared a little bit for the future of the movies we're going to be watching.
Yeah.
As you said, this is kind of the marker. This is kind of the flag in the ground, or whatever that phrase would be, of where the main star Cage ends.
Yeah.
And here we go.
Yeah. Well, wait till you hear what movie we're talking about next time, because you'll
lay it on.
You will feel it. But before we get into that, Mike, let's get into some Netflix reviews. So here's a 5-star review from Netflix for National Treasure Book of Secrets. I read both books before seeing the movies. I really enjoyed this movie because of all the top movie stars that played in it. The books follow the movies to a T. I would own both National Treasure movies because they both was put out by Walt Disney. I love Walt Disney movies. I could watch these movies over and over again. I give it a top rating of 5 stars. What I like about that review is that it seems to think Walt Disney is alive.
That it's definitely not written by a robot, and that was definitely a human that actually wrote that review.
That's true. I love that it thinks Walt Disney is alive and putting out National Treasure movies.
Personally.
Yeah. He's making them himself. He's writing, he's directing, and he's starring. He's starring in the movie.
It's crazy.
Here's a 1-star review of National Treasure Book of Secrets. In the first film, as Gates is attempting to steal the Declaration of Independence to read the secret code written on the back, he's asked if he's a treasure hunter, to which he answers, more like treasure protector. Or exactly like an archaeologist, of course. Gates couldn't refer to himself using that word, both because the Indiana Jones ripoff would be too obvious, and because his target market couldn't spell archaeologist if they were staring at the sentence. Benjamin Gates was born because the Da Vinci Code sold millions of copies. He lives in a world where everyone who is ever famous achieved all of history as a hobby in between hiding things. Still, you'd think an avowed treasure protector would be more careful than Indy when it comes to priceless archaeological finds, and maybe Gates would be if he was better at finding them. While real archaeologists are lucky to glean a single detail about an ancient society from a lifetime of work, Gates fumbles his way from one treasure to the next using clues so clearly spelled out for him you'd swear he was being led around by the writers of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? Instead of the writers of the Declaration of Independence, this sequel, National Treasure Book of Secrets, gets its name not from a difficult-to-translate biblical scroll, but from an actual book of secrets in which a bunch of conspiracies are written out for him in plain English.
That's a good point, actually.
The big mystery is solved when they discover that a federal book, which the president owns, is kept in the Library of Congress. If it had been a trilogy, they might have had time for Gates to try and decipher the meaning of an automatic door sign. Savage, man. That's a savage review. And actually, it's weird that he brings up the Book of Secrets. We barely talked about the Book of Secrets in this review, actually.
It's pretty irrelevant, actually, when you think about it.
It's there for like one clue, right? It's like just to lead him to Mount Rushmore. I think it's all.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the Book of Secrets was like it's cool, but it doesn't even show up until like an hour into the movie.
Yeah, it really should have been National Treasure Plank of Wood, because that's where all the clues are, what the Aztec cities are. Which is what they use the whole movie. Yeah. Until they can't, and they need the Book of Secrets, the last act. And that's it.
Yeah.
So, all right. Yeah. This review, I agree.
All right, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. But I don't think National Treasure Plank of Wood sounds as good. We'll
never know.
You're right. That's a fair point. Here's a 4-star review of National Treasure Book of Secrets. I have particular fondness for this movie for the simple fact that, as a child, I played on the very rocks at which the group in this movie discovers a hidden tomb. I know this isn't useful information for anyone interested in seeing the movie, but I gotta say, it was kind of neat seeing my old stomping grounds featured in a Hollywood flick. The lake is actually a small reservoir called Sylvan Lake, about 10 to 15 miles from Mount Rushmore. There is no lake behind Mount Rushmore, in case you're wondering. As you can imagine, this movie asked a lot from me as for suspending my disbelief goes. But I still enjoyed it, twisted reality and all.
You know, you got to consider that one person that's been at the place that where your movies take place when you're writing it.
Exactly. You got to consider his feelings into account and his personal suspension of disbelief when he notices that the lake that is in the movie shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Here's a 2-star review of National Treasure Book of Secrets. You have to be able to suspend belief for this one. Well, you did for the first one, too. The premise is good, but jamming the security at Buckingham Palace from the toilet, getting into the president's office in the White House during the Easter egg hunt, Custer's last stand was the Indians keeping the U.S. government from finding the lost city of gold? When the team went underground again and found the same oil-filled troughs that still lit that the Masons hid under Trinity Church to find an Aztec version of the Golden City from The Mummy Returns hidden in the Black Hills behind Mount Rushmore, give me a break. Oh, and Mother reads a dead, pre-Columbian hieroglyphic language as if it were her second language.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's enjoyable in a convoluted way. That is the 2-star review of National Treasure 2.
All right, that's fair.
Yeah. Here's a 1-star review of National Treasure 2. Another painful Nicolas Cage experience, as expected, that could have probably been less agonizing if it had about 45 minutes shaved off. Now, I have not seen the original National Treasure, but if it's anything like this uncreative mess, I don't want to. It is no secret that Nicolas Cage is probably my least favorite actor, but he's actually surrounded by a highly talented supporting cast that cannot breathe any life into this dud. Justin Bartha has all the best lines in the movie, but their effectiveness is taken away by the fact that every single one of his lines is tongue and cheek. I think he means tongue-in-cheek. Despite it being an action movie, it still made me bored, then made me sleepy, then I just wanted it to end, and it just keeps going on and on. The Mount Rushmore scene felt like 10 minutes of material stretched for an hour. Go rent Indiana Jones, stay at home, and know you made a wise choice. But hey, I got to see it on somebody else's dime, so I can't complain too much.
Nothing's better than free, you know?
I like that he says he can't complain too much after an entire paragraph of nothing but complaints. Here's a 4-star review of National Treasure Book of Secrets. It's great fun. No, it's not a commentary on human injustice or racial prejudice or religious significance, but if you're just looking for a couple of hours of entertainment, you can't go wrong with this one. Break out the popcorn, sit back on the couch, and enjoy it. Very defensive.
Yeah. Somebody was being attacked while writing that that review.
All right, now finally I got one more. It's a 1-star review of National Treasure Book of Secrets. Ay. Disney must have really shelled out some serious dough to get Helen Mirren, Harvey Keitel, and Ed Harris to appear in this massive clunker. I found the intense product placement disturbing. You can make a drinking game out of it, although participants would surely die. The incessant connecting the ridiculous dots by Nicolas Cage in every single scene was tired from the get-go. After 5 minutes, just like, really? I hate this film.
Wow.
Yeah. Harsh words, man. Harsh words.
Rough.
Yeah. Did you feel like the product placement was particularly egregious in this one, Mike?
Only in the one scene in Mount Rushmore where, like, we need water, and they just all happen to pass out Aquafina water bottles.
Okay, that's fair.
That's the only scene.
I was thinking, I feel like Riley has a tendency to use Apple products. I remember noticing in the movie, especially in the bathroom scene. He has a Mac and he has like another Apple thing going on, like,
and an iPod and all that stuff. Yeah, that's true.
But anyway, yeah. So final thoughts on National Treasure 2, Mike. I really enjoyed it. It sounded like you had some reservations about it, but I thought it was a very fun sequel to a very fun original.
Yeah, I had fun. I just would have liked maybe half hour less of it around there, but it's still for just big dumb fun.
I had fun, but I would like a half hour less fun, please. If you can,
yes,
if you can make that.
Just shave off a half hour here or there.
Yeah. All right. So I think that wraps up our thoughts on National Treasure Book of Secrets. Mike, where can we find you online this week?
You can find me at twitter.com/mdfilmblog. And if you like Dungeons & Dragons, my friends and I post our games at youtube.com/geonerd79.
And you can find me online at twitter.com/msmithfilmblog and all of our podcasts and stuff at filmbook.com. Thank you so much for listening to The Complete Works. I'm Mike Smith. That is Mike DeCriscio. If you're listening to this review of your podcast on iTunes, subscribe to the podcast, rate it, take a moment to give us a review, support this podcast and FilmBook taking part in our Patreon campaign. You can find our Patreon campaign page at patreon.com/FilmBook. Now, any and all feedback, compliments, topic discussions, even hate mail can be sent directly to podcast@filmbook.com. Please list the podcast you know about the title of your email because we produce just so many different ones, hard to keep track. We would love to hear from you. Now, join us in 2 weeks for another episode of The Complete Works. Now I finally get to reveal what the movie is that we're talking about. We're talking Nicolas Cage in the 2008 American remake of Bangkok Dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
I've never seen Bangkok Dangerous, but I saw the trailer for it a lot back in 2008, and the trailer made me laugh every time, just because the title was Bangkok Dangerous.
Yeah, that's a pretty 11th grade joke, or whatever grade we would have been in. I have never seen this movie. One of my friends in college used to say, I don't know if this is a real line from the movie, but he used to say, "It sure is dangerous here in Bangkok." And I really, really hope that's an actual line in the movie.
I can't wait. We'll find out in 2 weeks. Plus, you can keep an eye out for Film Bookcast. Now, we were supposed to have one out this week, I guess, but now because Complete Works was delayed, that's going to get delayed. So this week we were going to talk about The Post, which I have seen. And
I have also seen.
Oh, you've seen it already? Oh, man. Okay.
I did.
Do you want to just record that podcast?
Let's just hit end and we'll keep going.
I didn't realize you had seen it. We should have planned this out a little better. All right.
Oh, who discusses things with their co-hosts?
All right, so we're definitely talking about The Post for the next episode of Film Bookcast. Thank you so much for listening, guys, and thanks for getting in the cage.
Oh, shit. Boom! Nick Cage, motherfucker! Boom! Nick Cage, motherfucker! Boom! Nick Cage, motherfucker! Think about that while you're leaving Las Vegas! Boom! Nick Cage, motherfucker!